As we all know, the election is just a couple weeks away, and after watching all the advertising by the candidates and those for and against the issues, you know, we may have some questions rather than answers at this point. So what is a voter to do? Well, we decided it would be a good idea to have attorney Warner Mendenhall here as a guest to answer some of those questions. Welcome to our program.
Hey, thank you.
Once again. Warner, what is the hot button issue as far as you're concerned? You always fight City Hall, you fight for the little guy. What should we be aware of?
Well, I think I'm becoming more and more concerned about the voting machines that we're using for our elections. There's a lot of issues with those. We've had some testimony here in Cuyahoga County about vote flipping, where you vote for one candidate and it registers for another.
Right.
We've learned from Princeton University that these machines are hackable. These machines are also expensive. This is a computer that we're buying as taxpayers. It's only used 6 times a year. That is just ridiculous, and I think there's something else that can be done. And I think also that there's growing controversy among the public about whether or not their votes are really being counted properly.
Now wait a minute, your critics are going to say you're not progressive enough. I mean, it's the new millennium here. We got to go with the electronic balloting. You're saying to go back to the paper ballots.
On this issue, I'm as conservative as they come. We need to have paper ballots because they are verifiable. We can see our vote. We can see that that's how we voted, and everybody can observe those being counted. When these votes go into an electronic device, we can't see them being counted, and that's a problem.
Right.
I'd like to point out, Ohio law provides for observers of counting. How are we going to observe electronic impulses?
Right.
We can observe paper. So yes, I am taking a very conservative view on this.
You're old-fashioned. That's what it comes down to.
That's right.
The verification is what you're worried about.
Yes.
About actually tabulating and counting the ballots.
Yeah, and I'll give you another example of what's happening right now in Cuyahoga County. We used to have where when people voted, it was a list. There was a list, a tally on the door at each and every precinct. That is going away, and again, that's a provision under Ohio law. We are supposed to know at the precinct level what the vote was. Those votes now are being centrally tabulated, so we are not getting that check on possible fraud or problems with the election.
Right.
We need to have our votes counted person by person and precinct by precinct.
You're saying go back to the future and go paper.
Let's go paper, yes.
Here briefly is the timeline this evening. All the networks called Florida for Al Gore. Then phones lit up at all the networks. It was senior officials in Austin, Texas, calling the networks saying, look, trust us, something's wrong with your Florida numbers.
And you all called Florida before the polls had even closed, and we feel good about Florida. We have a fabulous organization there.
They're still looking for some ballot boxes that are missing here, but they are out there with deputies looking for the ballot boxes.
This whole issue of calling states on the basis of exit polling is something that needs to be taken another serious look at.
That might explain why those exit polls revealed Gore as the winner, and then the networks had to pull back and say, well, the state is still in play, because it doesn't take into account this.
Okay, Kerry, you're still with us?
I'm sorry, we're getting some confusing signals in my ear. I'm not sure. Brian, are you with me still?
Yeah, we're all with you.
Brian, are you still with me?
All right, we've lost communications with Kerry Sanders. It happens.
Well, we put Florida back into the too close to call category. You're saying you're going to take Florida? Yes, we're going to take Florida. Florida.
In 2000, the campaign chair of one of the presidential candidates was also running his election in the decisive state of Florida. Secretary of State Katherine Harris wrongfully removed thousands of African Americans from the voting rolls and repeatedly stopped vote counts.
In denying these requested amendments.
The Republican-led Supreme Court even issued an emergency stay to stop the recounting of votes in Florida.
I hereby declare Governor George W. Bush the winner of Florida's 25 electoral votes for the President of the United States.
Something felt very wrong. But I went back to my life, because after all, I'm just some dude. I've been some dude pretty much all my life. I like cartoons. I like playing with my dog, seeing live music. I'm not registered with either political party. And sometimes, forgetting is the best medicine. But you can only block out reality for so long. In 2004, I couldn't believe I was watching it again. The exit polls reported John Kerry winning the vote in Ohio. Tens of thousands of African Americans didn't get to vote. And again, the Secretary of State running the election was the campaign chair for the winning candidate.
The 2004 election is over and George Bush has been freely and fairly re-elected President of the United States.
And despite all this being apparent, John Kerry hastily conceded the election, giving up any chance at challenging Ken Blackwell's vote totals.
Even when all the provisional ballots are counted, which they will be, there won't be enough outstanding votes for us to be able to win Ohio. And therefore, we cannot win this election. My friends...
And there was that feeling again.
It was here.
But none of my friends thought our elections could be stolen. Not here. We all grew up thinking that kind of tyranny happens in the third world or the old Soviet bloc. In the Ukrainian elections, vote fraud became apparent. Thousands took to the streets for days to protest the outcome. What first gave away election fraud? The exit polls showed a significant difference from the government-reported vote count. Even the White House agreed.
We strongly support efforts to review the conduct of the election and urge Ukrainian authorities not to certify results until investigations of organized fraud are resolved.
How come they can't do it in Ohio? If they can do it in Ukraine, how come they can't do it in Ohio? If they can do it in Ukraine...
So why couldn't it happen here? When I was a kid in school, I learned the famous story about our founding father, George Washington, and how he was so honest, even as a kid.
I cannot tell a lie. It was I who cut down this cherry tree.
Except, that story's not really true. He didn't wear a wig or wooden teeth either. So, if our ideal of truth is a lie, then what is truth? And why do I still want that myth of honesty to be real?
You okay, Murph? Pull up security. We stop Murph bleeding. He's bleeding. Murph's bleeding. Yes. Okay. We gotta go.
Because when it's my countrymen dying for a lie, I'm not having that.
It appears that there were not weapons of mass destruction there.
You said you knew where they were.
I did not. I said I knew where suspect sites were, and we were just...
You said you knew where they were, near Tikrit, near Baghdad, and northeast, south, and west of there. Those are your words.
My words were that...
So, ladies and gentlemen, I present a White House election year album. Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
The media seemed willing to laugh off the lies that got us into an illegal war. It seemed like neither politicians nor the press cared about the truth. The next spring, between articles about Britney Spears and American Idol, there it was. The theft of the 2004 election in Ohio, in heavily footnoted detail by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I started researching on my own, and I discovered one of RFK's sources, Greg Palast, a best-selling author and BBC journalist who hunts down voter suppression like a private eye.
Jeb Bush and Katherine Harris knocked off tens of thousands of voters. They called them criminals when basically they were just guilty of voting while black.
I caught up with Palast in New York while he was running between appearances on Fox News and MSNBC.
What's wrong with Ohio?
What's wrong with Ohio? Okay, the problem is that Bush didn't win it, but he was declared the winner. The fix was in. I was just on Fox TV with some crazy woman. Yeah, George Bush won fair and square by the rules. Well, he didn't win fair or square, but he won by the rules that they ran.
The rules. On the playground, the teacher told us, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. But what if the other side isn't playing fair? These elections, after all the time and money and hot air, they're won by just a few votes. It's like in football, when the players all scramble and fight for the ball in a free-for-all. And if one team gets the ball just a few inches closer, they score a touchdown. And if not, the other team gets possession. With so much at stake, people cheat. If they think they can get away with it. Touchdown! And just a handful of votes, a couple of inches, decide our future. Until 2004, I didn't even know where Ohio was on the map. But no Republican has ever won the presidency without winning Ohio. And in 2006, I learned that Ohio had a big decision to make about its own future.
To change Ohio, it's time for Ken Blackwell as governor, and he's earned it.
If Ken Blackwell were to govern the swing state of Ohio and institutionalize his brand of elections, it'd be like forging his own key to the White House. I couldn't sit back anymore and be some dude shaking my head. I had to go to Ohio to see where our elections were going wrong and what was really happening at the bottom of this
Amazing thing is,
free-for-all.
Texas, Lone Star State, Lone Star. Like we said, it starts in Ohio, the Lone Star will lead the way. And this is that little foot in the door where you're like, not so fast, here we go. We don't need anybody big. We just need to trust ourselves. And this is a testament to the power of the people.